Spike in a box from FedEx yet again. So many recently, all thanks to you, fair viewer. I asked, you answered, and that answer was crystal clear. It's an RTR. Damn, I'm excited. Let's tear into this. Now, I didn't just get this bike because I wanted a new series. This also marks a bit of an occasion. So if you're watching this right now, then that means I have surpassed 10,000 subscribers. I added an extra 0. How cool is that? It was cool enough when I added a 0 when I hit 1K a couple years ago, whenever that was. That means this bike is also as a result of each and every one of you liking, commenting, watching, and subscribing. So to all of you, I thank you. But that's not all. There's actually a third reason why I got this, and the reason behind the series that I have in mind. So a little bit more on that later on. I forgot to mention this earlier, but this is no ordinary RTR. This is the RTR Lite, Diet RTR, RTR 0. But don't let that dissuade you. Let's take this thing out and see what it's like straight out of the box. And as you can see, I think this is the perfect spot to break this thing in, and you can tell by the dash here, 0 miles. So let's put some mileage on this. And as I'm sure you may have noticed, this is not exactly 100% out of the box. I did do one modification so far, the very first one, and that is the graphics. This thing looks so good now. Thanks to Voltron Watts, now I have a really nice holographic kit, so huge shouts to Kyle there. I think it looks fantastic. Woohoo! I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, but I'm awake now. Ooh, it is spooky this morning. Actually, if you're familiar with San Diego County, then you know this area is known to be haunted. Maybe it's a little closer to Halloween than you and I realize. But that's besides the point. This bike feels amazing, and I didn't think about this, but the RTR is actually a lot bigger than I expected it to be, and maybe that's because I'm surrounded by my Mototechs all the time. I just assumed it would be the same size. This bike is certainly sized up. It's much more like a CRF 150R rather than a CRF 110. Still a little bit of unsettled bounciness, but a hell of a lot better than the stock Mototech. I gotta say, it does feel a lot better after a while, specifically the size of this and just how much more comfortable this is for someone who's 6 foot tall like myself, as opposed to like the 60 volt Mototech, which is the smallest one that I have. They definitely knew what they were doing, sizing this just so that it's technically a kid's bike, but let's be real, it's an adult bike. Now, even though this is the light version, it's still the same size as the RTR, still packs a punch, and still feels grown up in every sense of the word. Related to comfort, even though the suspension on the Lite isn't adjustable, it's still quite stiff and valved such that even someone my size could take it off a jump with confidence. Woo! Acceleration's really good too, and on this specifically, steep uphill with this really rocky bit is where the electronic torque really comes into play, because that's the advantage of these things. You don't really have to be going that fast to receive that much torque. So I can just zip up this thing, whether I'm going 10 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour. It'll handle it. It's not gonna lug at all. This is fantastic. Now, I'm not just gonna be gushing about this bike. As fantastic as this is out of the box, there are still a few things that I don't like. First and most obvious downside that I noticed before I even turned on the bike, I just simply moved it, is the sheer noise that this bike makes. That don't sound great. It's almost creaky. You'd think that electric means silent, and yeah, technically this is silent compared to a gas pit bike, for sure, but there's still a lot of drivetrain noise and what sounds like just echo. I think it's that swing arm, the way it's designed, it just acts like an echo chamber. So there might be some ways to reduce that sound or maybe even eliminate it entirely. I have a few ideas. The second dislike with this right off the bat, although be it small, is the display. The placement is okay, but it sits in front of the bar pad just so that the bottom half, where the battery percentage, which I think is the most important thing there, is just slightly obscured, and I have to kind of make sure that I lean and look. It's not something that I can easily glance at. I've seen a lot of people flip them out so it's down lower, and that way maybe the battery percentage is at least a little bit more visible, maybe everything else is, so I might try that. Another thing I'm noticing with the acceleration, while the initial hit from 0 to full throttle or any kind of throttle is really good, it's when you let off the throttle I feel like there's a little bit of a hang. Either that or there's zero regen, which would be the equivalent of engine braking. Maybe I'm just used to having engine braking rather than it just coasting at full speed. But I think that's something that might be tunable, and I don't know. We'll see if we could possibly tune this out, depending on what I do with it. See, the lack of engine braking or regen is really prevalent here, where I'm going downhill down a rocky bit, and I'd kind of like to have a little bit of assistance in slowing me down rather than just hammering on the brakes. We found an actual road bit. Let's try some acceleration and braking and see how that feels out of the box. Not bad! And braking? Locked up a little bit there, but this one has legit brakes, like actual motorcycle brakes, rather than all of those hydraulic mountain bike brakes, which are slightly better than cable brakes, but still a step down from this actual stuff. So this has a really good brake feel, just so long as you don't lock it up. For not having really adjustable suspension, it's still nice enough that I'm going over this washboard and it's not throwing me all over the place. It's actually pretty stable. Okay, here's some really rough stuff. Oh my God. Okay, you can still feel it there. It's not the greatest there. You can really hear the noise of this thing, of the drivetrain, when you get up into the speed. Sounds like it's squealing. I'm being nitpicky here, obviously. This bike is, at least as of recording this, the GOAT. The pit bike to get, and that's why I got it, obviously. But being the GOAT comes at a cost. $3,200 to be exact. For the regular RTR anyway, this zero sugar version is only $2,200. I say only, but that's still a lot to pay when you consider that a bike like this with the same voltage goes for only $1,300. Same for the Tudio, same for the Razor. It's clear that the RTR is a step up. And I wondered if that price tag was justified, but I think it's safe to say it is. Another thing I'm noticing on this, especially with the washboard, is that with the premium pricing of this bike, you get premium products, and this frame in particular feels really good. Like with all the other bikes that I've ridden, it always kind of feels like if you push it over 40 miles an hour or so, you get the feeling that the frame just really doesn't feel comfortable with it. Like you really shouldn't be going as fast as you're going. But with this one and those higher speeds, it definitely feels like it's okay to be there. And with those brakes, again, I don't feel like I'm gonna be out of control. So far, top speed and of course range unknown. I've gotten it up to 40 on this road, but I'm sure it's got a little bit more in it. We'll definitely have to test those two things later on. I love these first rides because not only am I enjoying the product, especially this one, just being how premium and out of the box it feels. At the same time though, I'm thinking like, ooh, I could do this, I could do that. I'm starting to get so many ideas on what I want to do to this thing. Which leads really nicely into the mods and the series that I want to create with this. Like I scripted it that way. First is the reason why I chose the Lite over the RTR. That one is pretty simple. I'm cheap, and a $1,000 difference is a lot. Also, the consensus is that the Lite is for the modders. It gives you the solid platform that you can use to build up and improve. And that's the whole point of this channel. I don't want to go riding around on stock bikes, that's boring. But now onto what I want to mod and how I want to mod this. I have watched just about every video on here with upgrades to the RTR and the RTR Lite, and I noticed something, that all of those videos are showing off parts that are exclusively made and sold by Electro Co. Besides the cosmetic mods, of course, stuff like the graphics, bars, seat covers, that's all the easy stuff. No, I'm talking controller, tuning, battery, supermoto kit. I mean, I have to make this a supermoto, how could you not? Not only that, but because these offerings are from ENC only, they are expensive. I mean, the controller upgrade alone costs $1,000, and that one mod would put this bike's price tag all the way up to the regular RTR. That's also where I'm going with this. I want to match or beat the performance of an RTR for less than the price of an RTR. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna build this bike with two rules in mind. Number one is to be as cheap and effective as possible. This will include used parts, off-brand parts, homemade parts even, and will track every dollar spent for a running tally. And number two, Electro Co's website is off limits. We're on our own, and hopefully I can find some creative solutions out there, so if you're looking for performance without breaking the bank, I got you. Well, I'd say that's a pretty successful and very entertaining, fun first ride of the ETM RTR Lite. I put a lot of dust on this thing. It is nice and broken in. I also definitely want to delve into the limitations of this bike in its stock form. I've only ridden about 10 miles or so at this point, and the dashboard is showing that I have about 25% or so, so we'll see what that actually equates to with a full range test later on. Ultimately, with this first ride, the impression that I'm getting is that this is one hell of a bike. It is so much fun, even out of the box, but despite that, we are still going to modify this thing and turn it into something even more cool. So stick around for that. Subscribe if you haven't, and if you have, thank you so much for that extra zero. I really appreciate it.
Now we know we've come so far, but plenty more to go. Now I'm on the radar. Subscribe to see how we set the bar. In cheapness, spend less, still impress, hell yes.